27. If we follow the stars, may we go to heaven? Or may we witness heaven, right? So, guys, what I've decided to do here, because everyone's got their monthly forecast, and everyone that I've come across on YouTube that does their astrology thing, what they actually do here is they put together some generalized forecasts for equal houses, okay? To be quite honest with you, the way I look at it is, if I'm going to look at astrology and if I'm going to do a prediction, because I did write a column for like over 3 years, and I pretty much financed that column, right? When I started writing that column, I had maybe 2 or 3 books, but I got pushed into it. I mean, I didn't even go to a school. I was actually learning on the go, and I was buying the book so my horoscope could be somewhat, somewhat authentic, right? But as astrologers, all we're doing is ripping off some other man's knowledge, right? We buy a book and we put that book in our head, and then we learn how to use that book. Like, for instance, like Dane Rudier's Astrological Houses. When you look at that book, the spectrum experience for the individual, Dane Rudier, Astrological Houses, the spectrum of experiences for the individual. Very important book to have. And the thing is, even if you don't have a chance to read it every day, if you're in a situation where you don't have that time to read, because you're busy doing your YouTube thing, or you're busy doing the Instagram thing, or you're busy just paying the bills, and everything is about, being an artist, right? Being a caretaker. That's one thing for sure. And I have lots of things on the go here, but I want to do my forecast for the signs, right? But I want to do it in the way that I was taught, okay? Because the way I was taught was with the Placidica house system and the location where you are, okay? What I have on the screen right now is an equal house chart drawn for the moment. The chart is drawn for the moment the sun moves into Aquarius, the very moment. And I've used this Astro Gold, platform. And it's got some basic asteroids, the 4 classics for sure, and then, Hades and what have you. But what I'm going to do for you tonight, I'm going to show you the way I would read a forecast for Aquarius sun sign. Okay? Starting off with this forecast, because we're right in Aquarius, and being in Aquarius, I'm going to share with you that I am definitely a Leo at 2 degrees 34 minutes Leo. Okay, so you can see over here on the cusp of the second house for this chart that I've casted for London, we have Leo on the cusp at 3 degrees 52 minutes. Okay, it's about a minute and 20 seconds, a degree and 20 minutes out, 18 minutes out or something like this. Okay, you can do the math. I'm 234 and then it's 352. All right, so it's a degree and something. A degree and some change, right? Because here we got on the 8th house cusp is Aquarius. Look at that. At 3 degrees 52 on the 8th house cusp on this equal house system. Okay, if the planet was actually equal, but the planet isn't perfectly round, is it? No, she's wider. That's why I like the Pacificus. But for general reading, I want to talk about the general forecast and how I am at odds with how other astrologers do it on YouTube, and I want to do it the way I would forecast it, right? And then, after I'm done with this, I'll go do some painting for a while, right? And finish my jean jacket. Astrology should just be the 1 hour a day thing. You should always know where the stars are. If you're watching it every day, you know exactly where everything is when you're on the progression, right? Because when you do the forecast, when you're looking at your forecast, there's three charts we have to look at for when we do a forecast for a sign, okay? And this is the problem I find, because everyone is on a different lunar cycle, okay? We're all born at different times. That lunar cycle is that 28-day cycle. That's that most important cycle, right? This is how it is. Then we have to understand that we're not all born at 0 degrees Aquarius, right? Some of us are born at 29 degrees 59 minutes Aquarius. Some of us are born then, right? So what degree are you? Right? When are you going to start that cycle? That's why you can't really listen to these general. They're general. It's good to know where the planets are doing, but the influence is still all has to depend on where that sun cycle is, right? Because we are beings of light because of the sun, not because of planets. Planets are those little conflicts or helpers that we have along the way, right? The lion part of Leo still blends into Aquarius in a very icy way, right? That illumination power of the sun. The moon. Look for this. For instance. Let's look at this. Let's look at this Aquarius moon, right? Because when the sun crosses over Aquarius, the moon is in the crossover period for Gemini. So there's a trine happening there. And then we have, on this chart right here, we have Leo, not Leo, but we have Cancer on the ascendant, right? For this particular chart. But the important thing is to know is that the sun is going to be in for 30 days, the sun is going to be in one sign. And when it travels to that one sign, it's going to go over that solar sector of your life. So if I was a Leo undergoing this, which I am, if I'm a Leo undergoing this period, I'm in this 7th house partnership, right? We're in the 7th house partnership. Now let's click on the thing here. And we're only moving forward at 5 seconds on the interval. And it's moving, and it's going slow, so we can talk about this, right? Here's the interior chart. This is where we started from, okay? We started from where the sun is perfectly at 0 degrees, okay? Already, the sun's at 10 degrees. Is it really moving that fast? Holy cow. No, I don't think so. When you look at here, there's the descendant. Wait, this is the difference here. Let me just stop this for a second here. We have to select this, edit this chart, and we gotta put this whole entire, my fault. It does this by default. I should have this fixed beforehand. Okay, so what we're gonna do here, what are we gonna do? We're gonna go to United Kingdom. See how great that is? Select. And then we're going to go to London. Select. And then what are we going to say here? What's the next thing? We're going to calculate. We're going to look at the interior chart, which is 2:08 p.m. So when we go back here again, we look at this. It's wrong. Just give me a second here. Edit chart. And we're at here. We're going to start the clock at 20th January, right? So we got moon squared up, right? So we're starting this solar cycle with the sun and the moon in the air signs, right? And look at this. Look how the moon is. Look how the Father's playing with us, eh? Because it's a religion. Right? Like astrology isn't a government thing, right? Astrology is partly, even though Uranus and Aquarius rules, 11th house rules astrology, there's still that some kind of co-rulership with Jupiter, right? Because, see, the sun for this day is in my ninth house. It's on the cusp because I have my midhaven is at 6 degrees Aquarius. Okay, and the Aquarius, the sun moves. Every year. The sun has to cross over the 0 degree mark, and during that time period, I'm looking at the career aspect of my life. But at the same time, because that's my natal house as a Gemini ascendant, my ascendant would be right here, and this is how you should look at it when you're an Aquarius or a Leo or any other sign. This is what you have to do, right? Because this is the month of Aquarius, so we're going to go over Aquarius and Leo, okay? Access. This is where we're going to understand this. We're going to push play now, and as we push play here, we're going to go over this right now. If today was what's going on here? See how slow this thing's moving at 15 degrees, at 5 seconds. The sun has not even changed. Look, the descendant is moving. The ascendant and the Earth, the spin of the Earth is moving faster than what the sun is progressing. You can see this. Here it is. It started here. Well, see, the sun just made a whole minute of transition, right, in that time period since we've started, okay? Where are we at? 30 minutes. We're moving super slow, okay? But we're going to think about the 4 angles of the zodiac, okay? We're going to think about this. This is how we're going to think about this, right? Because we got the sun's moving through a fixed house. Leo is and it's opposed to fixed house, which is Leo. And then it's basically squaring a fixed house, which is Scorpio. And then it's squaring 11th house, which is Taurus. It's very interesting how this is because, see, my mother is born on January 21st. She's the Aquarius in my life, okay? This is so funny about this. So my mother's there at Aquarius. My father, my adopted father, who was a Taurus, would be in my 11th house sector, right? It would be in that, well, the Taurus is my career house. But here I am, the Leo. And then there's my father, who's a Scorpio. And my father's just my biological father. He's my dad, but we really don't have the kind of, I've had more conversations with this Taurian individual that came to me after. He was the only person that stuck out and talked to me. And he mainly talked about astrology, right? He's helping me out because I'm this individual that I'm kind of like orphaned because of my mother's brain tumor, right? My mother's brain tumor, sorry. But look at this. The sun has not even moved a degree through Aquarius. So we have it on a 5 second, right? It's to be easy on you. Now we're going to talk about Aquarius, okay? And we're going to give you on this go with Aquarius because this is my partnership house, right? I'm the sun. I'm communicating from my 3rd house. The sun is in Aquarius at the beginning of this transit. Look at the descendant. The descendant is absolutely flying, right? The descendant has gone from Capricorn, the ascendant and descendant. Look, the ascendant is actually moving across my sun now. And then the descendant is moving, it's approaching my midhaven for this, right? But you look at this, the sun has only moved 6 minutes. But look how much faster the ascendant is going, okay? It's very important. Because when we look at the progression of our day, each and every day, we have to understand the ascendant is moving through all of our houses. Where that position is moving from the beginning of the transit, right? And as the ascendant moves, as the Earth turns, it's coming in touch with our planets, right? I mean, in 24 hours, the ascendant will return to where we started here. Basically that's how it works on this podcast, right? And what we have to think about this, it's a cycle, it's an inner cycle. That's what astrology is. Very interesting, because we have these three cycles that we have to look at. There's these 3 cycles. There's actually 4 cycles if you want to get right into it. If you want to look at astrology in a 4-cycle, a 4-tier evolutionary process, if you want to look at it this way, you have to look at how the ascendant is moving from the moment you're born, right? You have to look at how the ascendant is moving from the moment you're born. Then you have to look at how the lunar cycle is happening every 28 days since the moment you're born. Then we have to think about the transit of the unbirthday, and the transit of the unbirthday is the time when the sun crosses over your ascendant every single year. Like for me, it's like May 21st is my unbirthday. And then my birthday would be what? What would be my birthday? My birthday would be my solar birthday would be like July 26th for me, okay? So we have this solar walk, and then we have this personality walk, which is associated with the ascendant, and then we have the lunar cycle. Are you catching my drift here? And this is how we have to look at things. This is exactly how because there's cycles, right? There's things that are actually happening. And then there's the seed is like the solar walk is very important, because it's happening for an entire month. It's the sun's journey. It's our ego self journey, right? We're lit first by the sun, right? If you're a Leo with ascendant Leo, then you're lit. Yeah, your ruling planet is the sun, right? But that solar self is so much greater, right? That solar self is so important. When the actual day is so important. It's how we move through the world, is through that day that we were born. The ascendant is a very single slice of time, right? The slice is it's like a sliver, right? It's that first breath thing, right? And that's why I always think that we cannot forget which house the sun is moving through. We have to look. I know that the sun is moving in, like we have here, 14 minutes now. It's 14 minutes, and it's going to take hours for this thing to move over here at this go, right? And you really get to see. You really get to see how everything is moving, right? That's when something doesn't happen, when you don't find success in your life, you have to remember that the planets keep on moving, right? Everything keeps on moving. You might have some kind of planet that's in a significant retrograde. Like me, I had a Venus retrograde for like over 30 years of my life. 30, a very long time of my life. I had a Venus retrograde. And that whole entire area, just no matter how much you try to make that area work, that sector of things to work, it's not working. until that planet comes out of retrograde and it starts doing, it starts, functioning how it was trying to function beforehand, before it went retrograde in your progressed life. Now, when we think about the sun, moving into Aquarius, because look at this, so far through our podcast here, the sun's only moved 17 minutes. I'm going to have to almost restart this interval, right? If I'm going to stop and then start it, and we could get it going, get up to 15 seconds, okay? There we go. Now it's moving again, okay? It's moving faster now. Should be moving much faster now. 15 seconds, three times fast. Oh, wow, we moved a minute. The sun moved a minute. Okay, so, and it's still not moving fast enough. It's still not moving fast enough for us to, it's not moving fast enough. It's not moving fast enough for us to basically hang out for the whole transition of Aquarius. But what we want you to do, this is how I want you to look at predictions for yourself, okay? I know personally that the sun is going to be moving from my 9th house into my 10th house, my natal 10th house. Okay? It using the unequal house system. When you're drawing precise predictive power for your chart, I would absolutely say that you should use a Placidic house system and have it drawn to where you are. Have your natal chart and have it overlapping where you are. So that way you can see exactly, because I've watched so many, I've listened to so many astrologers on YouTube, and the predictions have never played out like they said. It played out more like how the planets were sitting in my natal locations. And I could do this. I could completely understand this, because my fourth house of my chart is extremely small compared to my fifth house, okay, and my sixth house. This is my fifth, sixth, 11th, and 12th houses are my biggest houses in my chart, just because of where I was born, right? So, in my predictive, when I look at my predictive charts, I really like the intercept, because the planet, for me, like my Mercury is in that. Like, for instance, my Mercury or my Mars is in that 6th house, ruled by Mercury and Virgo, right? Even though Scorpio, my Mars is in Scorpio, there's that overlap, right? I see that there's that earth and water overlap in my chart where the Mars is. And then, we have to, it helps me. That's why I think, this Uranus and Jupiter conjunction, this Jupiter and Uranus conjunction is coming up here on like April 20th. But in April, let's just say that, because it depends where you are when the conjunction starts. But the thing is that the overall event of this happening is going to be, because when this thing happens, I'm pretty sure it happens after the new moon. And the moon is absolutely waxing. It is. I know it's waxing, right? We know it's all waxing. This conjunction is happening while the moon is into this. I think they move over. I'm pretty sure Jupiter conjuncts Uranus, and then the new moon cycle happens. The Taurus Scorpio cycle, right? So the overall event is for that 28-day cycle. The whole entire event, what really kicks off is that Taurus cycle. And we have to think about that, right? And what is that? Why am I talking about that? Because, see, when I look at an Aquarius sun sign, I know that if I do a general read for 30 days, the influence might the influence might not just be there at all. The somewhat prediction because of where the sun for that individual works, because there's that house overlap, right? I'm 3 degrees. I'm lucky. I'm 3 degrees. I'm 2 degrees 34 minutes into Leo, and that means that when the sun moves in, it's just a couple days before my birthday, and it's easy to follow that 30 days of fire in my life, which is absolutely overlapping air, which is my Gemini, right? I have a Gemini. I have a Gemini rising, but I have my son's in that third house of Gemini with a Leo overlap, right? And this is why it's important to know that solar walk. When you're listening to anyone doing that forecast, you have to first go back to your 30 days of your house, right? Because your house, your ninth house, like for instance with me, this would be my seventh house, right? At 3 degrees at the cusp here, this would be my entire seventh house here. Starting at 2 degrees, my entire seventh house being at 2 degrees, 34 minutes Leo, my entire seventh house would be Aquarius, right? But it would have that 10th house overlap of Saturn in my natal chart. So I know when the sun's progressing through this area, it is primarily illuminating Saturn and Aquarian relationships in my life, right? Because of that Uranus and Saturn overlap in my chart, right? Or that 10th house. The 10th house is ruled by Capricorn, right? But and then the cusp would be Aquarius. So you have that Uranus and Saturn. Uranus have a special relationship anyway that way. But with you, it might be completely different. All has to do with your ascendant. That's why some people really can't, and that's why a lot of these astrologers that are online that are reading their February trends, here they are, reading this February trends thing. It just doesn't work with you at all because you really have to know where the sign is sitting in your natal chart and where you are sitting in your solar chart when your solar walk, because we have a solar return. People have spent their entire lives studying and specializing on solar returns because they are important, just like the ascendant return. They say once the sun crosses your ascendant, your life will never be the same again. As so forth is with the solar return as well. But remember, we're 99% of what we are is the sun. And when you look at yourself, you have to remember it's the sun that is illuminating that planetary deposition that you're born under, right? The sun is still part of you. It's that Leo mixing with, say, for instance, if you're Aquarius, the sun mixing with that Uranus energy. Because Leos are egotistical, and Aquarians are equally egotistical. And remember what I said before. Folks. Uranus is way out there, right? He is absolutely out there. The sun is just a speck on the horizon. It's just a very bright star. And same with Neptune, same with Pluto. They all think they're the chit. They all think that they're the chit, and that's how they think. Because they're so far. They want to leave the solar system, right? Their attitude, their planetary revolution, they're cyclic. Go at the orbits around the sun are all about wanting to leave. They're spinning, and they're spinning their time. They're spinning through the area, and they get to look at the solar system, but they do not realize it's the sun that holds them in place. It's his heliocentric bubble, not the planet. So that's why this is why Aquarius is so revolutionary and rebellious at the same time, because he's the dude that rules his block, and the sun can't touch him, right? the sun just holds him there. But it's an amazing thing to understand. And to realize that he's rolling, right? The thing that is he's he's so rebellious, and he's so disoriented compared to the sun, because the sun is up and right, and the sun is this magnificent being that warms all of us somewhat. Maybe not Uranus. I mean, he's a frozen gas giant. you know, Minus it's amazing. What kind of atmosphere these planets absolutely have, right? And then when you meet these people, when you meet an old person in your daily life, and they got these particular planets going on in their life, like Uranus and Saturn. If you look at this, and then if you could see how Saturn is in his crystallization of his walk, and then you can look at someone like Putin, who has that Libra and Venus mix, right? The Saturn Venus mix with Libra, right? And then a Scorpio, which is a Mars, and then they're all exterior planets, right? It's hilarious when you look at this, but you can see how this sign is when you want to look at your solar walk, and you want to start this as an Aquarius. I mean, to show you this, to be right on the ball here and not to ramble around the town. Let's understand how the Aquarius is looking at February. Because when February starts, the sun will be, in this time period, even with this 15-second, we go speed this thing up a little faster here. Let's go a minute, all right? This is like 4 times faster yet. Now we're cruising, eh? Holy cow, look at that descendant going now. And look at the sun traveling now is faster as well. Now, we have to look at this. Every year, for an Aquarius or a Leo, the planets are going to be sitting, and as said for all signs, the planets are going to be in different houses for each and every year. So when that sun crosses over that natal sun, it's like putting on a new jacket for the year, right? This is my new presentation for the year. Okay? This is that sun doing this, okay? Now think about this part. When the sun is moving through the first house, it's your house. It's your personal pleasure house. It's your house of personality. It's after coming out of a dark and gloomy time, a time of weighing successes and losses, a time of a joint crisis. I mean, this is a 12th house. This is Neptune house. And when you're in Aquarius, that Neptune house, that 12th house, is also going to have what? For an Aquarius, it's also going to have a mix of Saturn, right? So an Aquarian who is an air sign has to go through this Earth and Neptune, which is like earth and water kind of experience. It's like watching a light flight type of little bird, trying to walk through quicksand, right? Because that's what that Capricorn house is for Uranus. It's a slow drudgery. My feet, my toes keep on getting stuck in the sand, right? It's sticky, right? It's crystallizing. It's weighing my legs down, right? But I still have to collect some seeds here so I can eat and I can keep healthy while I get through this sand, that I get through this marsh or whatever that little bird's doing, to get over to his Uranus land, right? So where he can fly again, like be like a lightning bolt, that little bird, right? It might be a weird little metaphor of this trek through the 12th house for a person that likes the air. We all have to deal with it. Leos have to deal with the 4th house, which is double water, right? And what kind of fire sign is going to like a double water time? Fire sign's like, all kinds of fire and all kinds of air. Give me some air and fire, right? That's a fire sign. I like to feel heated, and I have to have my air going. I have to have my fire going. That's how a fire sign works. And then air says, "Holy cow, I'm cold. I want some fire. I want some fire. I don't want some water because then I could be, and then I might have a problem. With getting crystallized, right, from that water being waterlogged. This is how the different signs work through these, because this is where it's important to know, to understand the situations of the day that you're going through when you're moving through a particular house, right? It's very simple, right? I mean, we're in the 2 degrees Aquarius here. I might even have to move this up even faster, 3 times faster, even so. So now we're really moving here. Okay, so let's think about this. We have 30 days. We're in Aquarian. We have 30 days. We're dealing with house personality. After the house of personality comes the house of self-worth. And that's where things aren't as much of as a party as they were in the first house. The first house is more like a party. It's a happy time because the element in which you were born in, you're at home with that element because it's the first house. But you have to really understand how that first house actually works, right? Because there's that overlap in your natal place, right? I mean, with me, I have a sun in the 3rd house of Gemini, right? It's a 3rd house overlap for the sun. It's an air and fire overlap for me. So when the sun crosses over my natal sun, when I have that solar return, I'm having it in an air time with a fire overlap. So it all has to do with that ascendant and what is the overlap, right? That's how I know if I'm going to look at my chart. If I'm going to say, for instance, this person's chart right here. Say this person's chart, this particular Aquarian. Say this particular Aquarian here is a Cancer on the ascendant, right? He's born at 0 degrees Aquarius, but he's a Cancer on the ascendant, which gives him that moon. All of these things, an inconjunct kind of experience happening for that individual because his ascendant would be like inconjunct his sun, right? So he would have to be dealing with, a sun in the 7th house, which is ruled by Venus and Saturn, but he'd have that moon rulership, his ruling planet being a Cancer at 3 degrees. When you look at that, would give him that moon. It would make him a completely different person than having a Leo ascendant or a Gemini ascendant. You see what I'm talking about here, and that's why a lot of these generalized forecasts don't make any sense whatsoever. It's frustration. I only talk about another astrologer's work out of frustration because I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they don't talk about it this way. Because this is the proper way to do it. If you're going to look at it, because the Aquarian, we all have 12 houses. And to know those 12 houses is to know that the first house, the house of personality, is the flavor of the year, of the entire year. And then there's the 2nd house, which is the self-worth of the entire year. And that 2nd house is normally the financial high of the year. And then you go into the 3rd house, which is a better house for when you move along, and that's your house of organization, right? Your 3rd house is your organization, your communication. That's your short distance travels and in your constant emails or text messages. That's your 3rd house. And then there's that 90-day period. There's that 4th house experience. The 4th house experience is sharp for all signs. And the reason why, say if it's this person right here, he's born and he's got this sun, this individual right here, he's got this sun starting off in Aquarius. So the 2nd house is also ruled by a Scorpio house and a Mars house. So that you would have to look at that situation, right? But remember, there's an overlap. Like where that sun is crossing over, and depending on the Placidic house system that you are using, it's all about the overlap, the intersect. We run into problems at intersections. And that's why I believe in intersecting houses for really like precision, forecast. If you've been living in the same town for your entire life, and if the town's sun is in conjunct your sun, every single year is going to be very similar, right? There's just going to be different events, but the time and the place of these events are going to be similar when you're looking at where the sun is traveling. That's why it's important to know the chart for the town that you live in. But to move on, to go through this, because right now, Aquarians are moving through their personal first house, okay? Then Aquarians are going to move in their second house 30 days later, and their second house is Pisces, right? So it's that whole term, air meeting the water and, basically becoming some of the air being frozen with the water, right? It's that crystallization. And it's the air, it's how two mix, you got cold air and it hits the water and it becomes ice. But then as that water sign, it rules that second house for Aquarius. And for this person, they would have basically it's the ninth house of Jupiter, which is, finds it normal in Pisces because he originally ruled Pisces before Neptune was discovered, right? So you got a Jupiter and Neptune kind of experience, which is quite interesting because you have to think about the heat of Jupiter and Neptune like working together here. And maybe that heat of Jupiter is what assists that water to basically, unlock itself from the icy ways of Aquarius. Because the icy ways of Aquarius is what happens after the crystallizing energies of the 12th house for an Aquarian, because the energies are crystallizing in the 12th house for that, because you have the Neptune experience, then you have a Capricorn experience for going on for the 12th house matter of every year. It's going to be different. It all has to do with how many planets are going to be in that 12th house experience for that Aquarius. And as you can see, for this particular year, for an Aquarian, he's got a loaded 12th house. His house, he's got a loaded 12th solar house for an Aquarian. And for a Leo, because a Leo is for a Leo solar year, you can see how Capricorn is here for this time of the year. For a Leo, because a Leo, Capricorn would be the 6th house. For a Leo, he's got a loaded 6th house for Capricorn, right? For Aquarius right now. Until these planets, he, for a Leo, would have a loaded 6th house, because Aquarius is that solar 6th house for a Leo. And once again, it all has to do about where your sun is, because you know that you're as a Leo, that your 7th house is going to start somewheres in Aquarius. And the later that you were born in Leo, the more of a Pisces 7th house you're going to have. That's why it's very important to take a lot of these generalized forecasts with a grain of salt. You have to know this part. You have to know that these houses, right when your birthday rolls up, you have to know where the sun is possibly sitting. You know how it's which house, because matters change as the months change. And the months are the houses. And to get from one house to the next, you got to use the hall. And I'm Walter, right? My first name is Walter. I'm the warden of the corridor. That's why I'm showing you down this corridor so you get to the house you need to get to. With as much grace and with as little disgrace, right? So this is how you have to look at it. So if you're in Aquarius, which, look at it again. Your first solar house is the first house. Personality experiences. Second house, self-worth experiences. Third house, organizational experiences. 4th house, home front experiences. 5th house, hopes and heart's desire kind of experiences. It's a great house, a house of the heart and the spine, 5th house. The 6th house, the house of the crisis and the house of mental exploration and the house of, being a service to others, being of a servant to others. And the reason why we all have to go through these different houses after we leave our birthday is because there's the self and then there's the related self. And once we go through that 6th house, once we get to that 6th house experience, that Aquarius moves into that related 6th house, it finds in that Leo world. The world that rules the stage and the child. Because without children, we cannot have humanity. So after an Aquarius meets that 7th house experience, it moves into the 8th house, which mirrors the 2nd house, which is related self-worth, right? And then after related self-worth in the 8th house, we go into the house of organized religion, foreign frontiers, philosophy. And then after that, after our 9th house experiences, we move into 11th house experiences of the group or of disruption. There's that flip side of every single house. And then we move into what house? What house is next for the Aquarian? After that house of the group is the 12th house. You got that Capricorn house. Sagittarius for this individual would be like, this is a Cancer ascendant person right here. So that's Sagittarius and not on that. But there's, after the 9th house experiences, because you have your foreign concepts, your foreign affairs, and your house of travel, a house of mental exploration. This is all 9th house. And your house of religion, all 9th house, all Jupiter. You're going someplace. That's that 9th house. The 9th house is that you're absolutely going somewheres. But the 10th house is next. For what reason? Because the 10th house is ruled by Capricorn and Saturn, right? And as we said before, Saturn and Capricorn, that's that structure of the travel. It's that timekeeping of the travel, of the mental exploration. To be able to mentally explore, and to be able to physically travel, you have to have something you have to have a structure that will hold you and keep you safe during the travel. And that's where Saturn comes from. That's where Saturn comes from, right? And that Saturn for an Aquarian, is what? Right? Because Aquarian is the 1st house. Capricorn is the 11th house, which would be the Neptune house. And then Jupiter would be that that 11th house experience is still ruled by Uranus for the Aquarius person. But that 11th house experience for that is also ruled by Jupiter, right? And then the 10th house experience is that Scorpio house, right? And Scorpio house is that 10th house, is that Pluto and Mars experience for that Aquarius person. Did I get you confused? So backwards, you got back from the sun, going backwards, your 12th house is for an Aquarian, your 12th house is your Saturn and Neptune experience of the year. Your 11th house is your Uranus and Jupiter experience for the year. And then for Scorpio, for your 10th house experience, it's your Mars, it's your secondary Mars and your first your only Pluto experience. It's that mingle. That's your Saturn house, and that's your 10th house. There's that Saturn. So you're gonna have to. You gotta think about that. You gotta think about that when you look at your chart. You see how my mind works here. You see how my mind analyzes here, because when we look at this, the overall progression of the month and what's happening, we have to really remember that the planets are moving, right? But at the same time, for all of us are individuals, and you'll never ever duplicate an astrological chart. That's why general readings only generally work, right? It gives you general readings are just breadcrumbs that help you look at the cycles that I've talked about tonight, right? I've talked about the transit of the natal ascendant, your rising sign, and when the sun transits that rising sign, it's your unbirthday. And then we have talked about the solar return and how you put on a new jacket, a new presentation for that year for 12 months. And that's when the time period happens when you start your first house. And then when that happens, you're going to be in a different lunar cycle every single year. The moon is going to be in a different location every single year for every single different solar return. So there's all these interlocking cycles to look at, and that's why general forecasts from month to month just are so vague to most of us. That's why people that know astrology like myself get too frustrated to follow another astrologer that relies on that general forecast reading, especially if it's related to ascendant, because if you're looking at ascendant, you should be talking about that unbirthday time for when the sun transits, and it's still the sun. It's still the sun that's transiting the ascendant. It's not the ascendant transiting the sun, right? If you're going to look at how your ascendant is going to transit your sun or your natal ascendant, you have to look at that every day, right? Every day. When does that happen? See, there's so much to look at it, right? There's so many ways to become clairvoyant through astrology, especially when you put all the information I've just shared with you tonight. When you put all this together, either if you're a Scorpio, any sign, right? You want me to do this every single month and share with you how the sun's going? Because right now, to start a proper forecasting playlist together, to put a proper forecasting playlist together for this coming month, I have to go at it this way. I have to explain how complicated forecasting is, because there's Aquarius is 30 degrees of the whole entire chart. It's 30 degrees. And then there's different types of people born on each one of those 30 degrees. And every single year, that person born on that particular degree is going to have a different moon sign, a different ascendant, and different other planetary positions, It's crazy, right? It's really hard. I've listened to so many people's forecasts for me. I think I've listened to at least 3. I've had probably the patience to listen to about 3 different generalized forecasts. I'm probably subscribed to maybe 6 or 7 different astrologers, but YouTube, I don't get the notification for maybe half of them. But when I do listen to them, they're generally never off, because the stuff that they're talking about happened last year or something, just because how my chart is situated, right? As I said before, my particular chart, where I was born, the 5th and 6th houses are the largest. They're the largest intercepting houses. And I've had astrologers do all their generalized predictions about the 4th house, and really my 4th house is so small, and that's why I don't even have a family. That's the reason why I live in a bachelor suite, because I have such a small 4th house. And it shows in my chart that my 5th and 6th house are what they are, and they're married up to the 7th house in such a way. And that's the reason why I like to be outside, or I like to be working on big projects like murals or painting cars, or, but I like to be moving around a lot. I like to be getting where I'm almost getting 10,000 steps in every single day. I need to be, at large. I need to be working on a painting or something that's published, right? Because I got that sun opposite my ninth house of publishing. My sun is sitting in the third house opposed to my ninth house of publishing, right? That's why I'm the constant publisher. So, folks, the sun will move out of Pisces. I mean, you can see right where we're at now. We're halfway there. And then for an Aquarian person, Aquarian sun sign person, because this is primarily for the sun signs, right? These forecasts are primarily meant for Aquarian sun sign, solar self, and your ascendant is based secondary because it's your solar walk. My forecasts are more about the solar walk. What makes it more unique and more individual is where that solar walk is taking place due to your natal ascendant. But however, you're still on a solar walk. And you have to blend that first house of, say if you're a Cancer ascendant, like this chart example, if you're a Cancer ascendant, that solar house walk would be through a Mars and Pluto house of Scorpio with the Uranus overlap, right? So you catching my drift here? I mean, are you getting a good? I mean, with the next forecast I do for when the sun is in Pisces, we'll go over all this again, right? And we'll make notations. As I said tonight, if you're an Aquarian, you got a lot of stuff going on at different parts of the year, but you got to look at your natal house. You have to get one of these chart casting systems, or you have to just go to astro.com and do it yourself for free every day, right? Just cast your chart and know where the moon's going to be for most of the time. Because remember, most things that happen, most turn point events that happen day to day is all about that moon timing, right? The overall forecast for Aquarius is going to be different for every single Aquarian because they're all born at 30 different degrees. All of them, we've got 30 different degrees for the Aquarius sign, as every other sign. And that's all kinds of different people born all different kinds of times. And you got to know your natal chart, and you got to know how to interpret that natal chart and know how to forecast by yourself, because you are an astrologer just like me. Even if you're just getting started, you're just like me, because we're all still going to the same place, which is that 2041 place. I'll talk to you later. I got to get on to my next creative project. I got to do some painting tonight. All the best to you, and I hope it's been a good learn.